The new day centre at Earl Mountbatten House is very much a community project. It's open to cancer patients from all over the Isle of Wight and was built with £300,000 raised by islanders in 14 months. Specialist nurses control the symptoms of cancer and provide emotional support to the patients. There's room for 16 day patients, about 40 each week. They're delighted with the new facilities.
Well, we all love it, yes, we really do, because there's so much room. You see, we used to have a room, half this size, yes, all of half this, and then we used that as our day centre, but you couldn't do anywhere near what we do here.
The day centre is already at capacity. There's an enormous need for facilities to care for cancer patients. The sister in charge of Earl Mountbatten House believes the Isle of Wight is lucky to have this centre.
With the facilities that we provide, our inpatient unit, our daycare and our 3 Macmillan nurses, I think the patients on the Isle of Wight do very well, actually.
How much do you feel that you are supported by the community?
Very much so. We have our own trust fund here at Earl Mountbatten House, and donations come in at an amazing rate. We do really take in an awful lot of money, and we need it desperately.
With further contributions to the trust fund, staff here believe the island will continue to have some of the best care for cancer patients in the south.
Hello, I'm Sally Taylor. Welcome to South Today. In tonight's programme, tough times put a hole in hospice funds. More services are put on hold as charities feel the financial pinch.
People have left their property to us, but because of the housing slump, those properties are not being sold and the money is obviously not being given to us here at the hospice.
Also in tonight's programme, sent to prison. The financial officer who stole from the charity she worked for. The dogs of war. We meet the frontline canine troops training for Afghanistan. And will the new Seagulls boss still be smiling at the end of the season?
I firmly believe that if we work together, the fans, the board, myself and the players, to ensure that we keep our Division 1 status.
The Oakhaven Hospice in Lymington has postponed an expansion plan because of fears that donations could fall off in the future and threaten its current services. Oakhaven, like other hospices, relies heavily on fundraising. The hospice says the move is a precautionary measure. Other hospices, though, are already suffering. Naomi House has cancelled one of its services and a hospice on the Isle of Wight has closed 2 beds. Freddie Rostand reports.
Oakhaven Hospice has an inpatient unit for 8 people with life-limiting illnesses. But like other hospices, it relies heavily on voluntary donations. But in the current climate, these are under pressure as never before. At Oakhaven, a multi-million-pound expansion plan has been put on ice, specifically increasing inpatient numbers from 8 to 12 and building an education centre. But their £500,000 plan to expand the day hospice is going ahead.
And whilst our fundraising is holding up, there are one or two of our income streams that you can just see are going the wrong way at the moment. Nothing serious. So we're just being cautious. So, we don't want to get, as I said, 9 months down the line and find we've got a problem. We're just being cautious.
Oakhaven is fortunate. The founder, Phoebe Coates, was generous throughout her life and when she died 3 years ago bequeathed the family home. Others have not been so lucky. Here at Naomi House, a children's hospice near Winchester, over £5 million of their money is frozen in an Icelandic bank. They've suspended their outreach programme, the Hospice at Home service. And whilst building work for Jack's Place, a new hospice for teenagers, is going ahead, its opening may have to be phased. And on the Isle of Wight, the crisis is even more acute. Desperately short of cash, the Earl Mountbatten Hospice has had to close 2 of its 16 beds, lose 7 nurses and 3 managers. They do have assets, properties bequeathed to them.
The main impact for us here at the hospice has been the fact that people have left their property to us, but because of the housing slump, those properties are not being sold and the money is obviously not being given to us here at the hospice.
Freddie Rostand, BBC South Today.
Well, it's not just hospices which are worried about the future. Charities generally are having to reassess what they can do with the funds they have at a time when the need for their services is increasing. Earlier today, I spoke to Stephen Bubb, who is the Chief Executive of the Association of Chief Executives of Voluntary Organisations. I asked him just how tough it was for charities in this current climate.
Well, there's a double whammy. We've got rising demand for our services because the recession is hitting people and hitting communities, and they expect charities to help them. That's what we want to do. And we've also got falling income. So it's actually extremely difficult to cope with that problem.
Should they be given government help, though?
Yes, absolutely. We have had some government help. There was a recession action plan launched last month, and that provided 42 million. And that was a start. But what we have said as chief executives is that we need at least 500 million, and we are pressing the government to find them, and I think we will probably get that as people realise just how bad things are for us.
I suppose, could there be an argument that there are too many charities and that, in a way, some of them have got to amalgamate given the difficult circumstances at this present time?
Yes, I think that's, there is some argument in that. I mean, if not mergers, then sort of partnerships and alliances, and actually people are looking at that. And part of the plan that the government launched was support for charities to do exactly that, so they can preserve the work that they're doing, but working with others. So yes, you're right.
And what about the knock-on effect? If charities are finding it tough, the people they're helping are going to find it even worse.
Well, that's of course the sad thing when you think about the charities who are providing debt advice, who are working with homelessness. We know what happens with long-term unemployment. We know what happens with when young people can't find jobs, and they do turn to charities for support and help. And if we've got falling income, although we want to help, it's tough.
Stephen Bubb, thank you.
Thank you.
Another blast from the past now, because for the first time in more than half a century, horse-drawn ploughing teams have competed on the Isle of Wight. Competitors came from across the south to take part in the event, which helped to raise cash for the island's Mountbatten Hospice. Mel Phillips was there.
For the horses, it's part beauty parade, part tug of war. Almost all the entrants had come from the mainland, teams and traditional ploughs brought across by Whitelink ferry. It was in the mid-1950s that the last horse ploughing match came to the island, but the passion hasn't faded.
It's learning the knack of getting it right. I mean, you look at the older gentlemen that do it, they can make it look so easy, but it's getting the knack of getting it just set right.
We just literally met up with an old couple, Anne and Will, from down in Devon as well, and they taught us a lot. Played with their horses a fair bit to start with, and then got my own pair and just carried on.
This memorial match aims to remember ploughmen of the past, including organiser Karen Sheath's grandfather.
My grandfather was Wallace Sheath. I never knew him, unfortunately. The only thing that we have of him is, or I have of him, is some pictures of him and his horses ploughing, and I don't know what he would think of this today. He'd probably go a lot of fuss about nothing.
But it doesn't always go so smoothly.
What's the technical hitch?
It's pulling the knife back.
And that makes you go off line, does it, in some kind of way?
It doesn't cut your furrow for you.
It's unlikely to be another half-century before the horses and ploughs are back on the island again. Mal Phillips, BBC South Today, at Atherfield on the Isle of Wight.
An Isle of Wight hospice stands to receive thousands of pounds from sales of a charity single. A group of singers calling themselves Isle of Wight Unite have recorded a version of the song We Are the World. Over the past few weeks, they've sold hundreds of CDs of the track to raise money for the Earl Mountbatten Hospice. The song even made a brief appearance on the download chart. Organiser Simon Ledger chose the charity in memory of his father, who spent his final days there.
We decided to use this charity as it was quite close to me because my father spent his final few days in the hospice. I decided to put this together about 5 years ago. I managed to get it planned and organised in the last 3 months, and the recording went absolutely amazingly. In about 4 hours it took, with the solo parts and choir parts. CDs have gone on sale all around the island.
Now, here's a statistic for you. 1 in 3 people has been touched by hospice care. But unless you or a family member has had experience of a hospice, you might not know much about their work.
A project's underway on the Isle of Wight to try to demystify what can be a difficult subject of end-of-life care.
And it's been working with children who now have a very different perspective of what a hospice is like. Lewis Coombs explains.
What's my name?
Ray.
Ray. How old am I?
85 and a half.
I don't need to introduce Ray. He's just done it for himself. In fact, despite having a life-limiting illness, he still does most things for himself. Just one of the things the visiting school children soon came to realise.
I thought it was going to be much like a hospital, very dark and quite small, and everyone would probably be very lonely.
Well, I thought it'd be like sad and dark, but when I got here it was actually nicely lit up and everyone was happy, all colourful.
It's one of the most amazing places for people who don't have as long a life as they should.
Ray is one of 15 day patients at the Earl Mountbatten Hospice in Newport, while 16 others live here. The children were welcome visitors.
The scheme itself is marvellous because it breaks down all their thoughts of darkness and gloominess. But as a side effect, we get the company, you see.
Well, I mean, there's normally 12, 15 of them come. We have good fun, don't we? Remember my name?
Ray.
Before their visit, each child was asked to describe hospices in one word.
Dark, lonely, grey.
An opinion Hospice Care Week is attempting to change.
They come in with that anxious, scared fear that many people do, and that perception totally changes.
After their tour, very different words came to mind.
Loving, amazing, fun.
The trip had served its purpose. Hospices well and truly demystified. As for Ray, well, he just enjoyed meeting new friends.
Do it, so please. Happy in this party time again.
Lewis Coombs, BBC South Today, Newport.
That is an inspiring visit. It really is, to change the whole mood of how children see hospices. Very good. Let's go.
Now, hundreds of people will enjoy a hot bath this evening after taking part in the Walk the Wight event. It's a 26-mile route from Bembridge to the Needles. Organisers hope the walk will raise £250,000 for the Earl Mountbatten Hospice in Newport. Well, they certainly had good weather for it today. Let's get the forecast now with Holly Groom.
Hello, I'm Sally Taylor. Welcome to South Today. In tonight's programme, flowers and a mother's tribute to a beautiful son as a murder investigation continues into the death of a 17-year-old in Bournemouth at the weekend. The future of Trident, the controversial nuclear programme that provides thousands of Berkshire jobs. Flying down to Rio, Weymouth windsurfer Bryony Shaw has the wind in her sails as she goes for gold.
I'm Alan Titchmarsh. Join me on South Today when I'm in a very special garden that's made it all the way from Chelsea Flower Show to a hospice on the Isle of Wight. Believe me, it's beautiful.
Now, this is a lovely story because it started life as a show garden at last year's Chelsea Flower Show, but today it became a very special space on the Isle of Wight.
Award-winning gardener Matthew Wilson has transplanted his pride and joy from the centre of London to the Earl Mountbatten Hospice at Newport.
It's the latest project for the charity Green Fingers, which is dedicated to creating gardens for children in hospices, and Ben Moore was at the opening.
Where better to be on a day like this? They call the Isle of Wight the Garden Isle, but the last time the public strolled through these brilliant borders was at the Chelsea Flower Show.
It's very unusual for Chelsea Gardens to make it into the real world. And if you look at the planting, it's quite soft. Grasses, Perovskia, that sort of sage-like thing with the blue wands over there. There's nothing jarring about it. You come in here and you think, this is such a lovely place to be. And I'm a great believer in gardens are places to be in, not just to look at.
The garden was exhibited at the 2015 show, where it won a coveted People's Choice Award. It'll now be one of 5 gardens being installed across the UK to improve life for hospice patients. Earl Mountbatten cares for 600 people across the island, on site and at home, so charity Greenfingers chose it as the permanent home for the award winner.
Really, we're talking about bringing everything that people get from the benefits of the hospice outside. So a place to sit and chat quietly, a place to spend time dining as a family, spending time dipping your hands in the water, having sensory feelings that you don't get in an indoors environment.
The hospice is the only one in the UK to provide services and care for adults and children, and the garden certainly reflects that. It's not only a place to come and relax, it'll double as a playground. So everyone here, from patients of all ages to carers and staff, will benefit.
I've got cancer, but I've never felt better. It's so relaxing. Really is. I mean, it's lovely.
You can actually come here and just kind of sort of get your emotions, have a little bit of peace and kind of think about the day ahead and what you're going to do and what the day that you've just had.
It's a dream come true. A dream come true. And for people at the last times of their life to be able to have the freedom, the beauty and the variation. It's just beyond words.
The garden is designed to last for decades and has been described as a place where patients of all ages, no matter what the future holds, can celebrate life. Ben Moore, BBC South Today, on the Isle of Wight.
And let's hope it brings a lot of comfort to a lot of people. That's at the Earl Mountbatten Hospice at Newport. Now,